It is Friday morning, almost 9 o'clock. I had to move my camp last night because I ended up next to a person that was running their generator after the allowed hours. The park ranger was willing to come over and have them shut it off, but I didn't want to create a controversy. And I wasn't terribly thrilled with the site anyways, given that I was sandwiched in between two people. So I moved my camp and it was much quieter. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, some animal decided to pay a visit to my campsite, and it woke me up. I looked outside and I can't tell exactly what it was. I think it was a skunk. It had a very large, wide tail. At first I thought it was a porcupine given the size of the animal, but I don't think that's what it was. It didn't seem terribly disturbed by the fact that I was shining a bright light in its eyes, and eventually it moved away and disappeared into the night. So I can only conclude that it was a skunk. Certainly didn't smell anything. Crossing the river over into New Hampshire. Today I plan to visit the USS Albacore in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, which I saw before on, I think, my Four Corners tour when I was coming south, but it was closed at the time, I believe because of coronavirus. So I hope to get there today and actually take a visit through the submarine itself. They have tours or allow access to it. And then I've got a campsite in southern New Hampshire tonight. Only got about 104 miles to ride, but it's telling me it's going to take me 2.5 hours to get there. So it must be somewhat slow going. Just made 1,200 miles on this trip. Still a few days to go. Route 202 headed east. Concord, New Hampshire. It's very warm again today. My bike is reading 91 degrees Fahrenheit. A little hazy. The town of Dover were settled in 1623. It's really hot out. They are celebrating their 400th year. The purpose of these colored crosswalks. Interesting. So it's going to take me into Maine. I'm in Maine and I am paralleling the New Hampshire border to my right as I make my way southeast. There's a sign, Kittery, Maine, 7 miles ahead. I have to think about going there for lunch. It's early September of last year when I did my Canadian province trip, where I stopped in Kittery for lunch at Bob's Clam Shack. Well, if it's not too far from the submarine that I'm going to go visit, I may do that. The memorial for USS Thresher, which is a submarine that sank. I think they lost all the men on board. So that was a really good lunch at Bob's Clam Hut. They always come through. Only got 1.5 miles to go to the Albacore. There's supposed to be strong thunderstorms coming through here later on today. I don't see anything yet on radar, but the heat and humidity certainly seems conducive to it. And over here is the Albacore. You can see her sitting there on dry land. It's going to be an interesting story about how they got her even that short distance from the water to the land. It's a pretty cool view. It shows the progression of boat design for submarines, starting with World War II. Here's the second display of submarine evolution. So this should be fun. It's a self-guided tour. Going through the bow, come out through the stern. This boat took a half an hour to submerge, unlike some of the earlier craft, which wasn't really designed like the World War II subs. This is a hatch right there for the anchor. Looking forward, the bunks. This is an escape trunk.
Here for the officers' mess. Food was prepared aft in the galley, brought forward and served out of this area. Opposite the pantry is the captain's stateroom. A captain usually had a room to himself, but because of the small number of berthing spaces, there was a second bunk for the executive officer. A complement of 5 officers,
this is the officer's wardroom.
His own bunk. However, there were 2 additional bunks that could be made up in the wardroom when additional officers or senior scientists were on board. The back of the
officer's stateroom.
During Albacore's 3rd phase conversion to the crucifix stern, a special high-capacity silver zinc battery was installed. 2 radio masts. Please proceed aft to the control room, the next compartment. Watch your head as you go through the watertight door. This is the ship's navigation center, where the quartermaster of the watch was stationed. The quartermasters were responsible for maintaining and projecting the ship's path of travel, or the ship's track. Is the ship's periscope, and it is here that the conning officer, usually the captain or the executive officer, stood his watch. Unlike today's sophisticated periscopes with radar, radio, TV, and infrared capabilities, our periscope only had a basic set of optics. The room has 2 aft-facing consoles. We relied upon sonar to be our eyes and ears when submerged. We had 2 types of sonar: passive or listen only, where the operator listened for sounds created by other ships, sea creatures, or the weather. The other, active sonar, required that we project a sound wave into the water and listen for a returning echo. The RAN used signals from 2 or more radio stations to provide lines of position, which the quartermasters plotted on special charts to determine the ship's position. Galley, the ship's baker made fresh rolls, bread, pies, cakes.
Albacore was a great feeder, even by submarine standards. Every other Friday noon, we served either fresh boiled lobster or lobster Newburg. On Newburg Fridays, I would go to the executive officer and ask him to take the secret Newburg ingredients, a bottle of sherry, out of his safe.
21 crew members asleep in this section. And then back here, a very narrow passage. It's the other bunks. Really tight.
At the end of this compartment is the crew's washroom and toilet facilities to serve the 50-man crew. The toilets were flushed using seawater and drained into a second sanitary tank located under the deck. Because fresh water was costly in electricity to make at sea, freshwater usage was pretty much limited to about a gallon per man per day. A partial sink full of water was used to take a bird bath.
Back in the machinery spaces.
both sides are sound isolated rooms for the diesel engines. These high-speed engines turn generators that produce the electricity to drive the main motors, charge the storage batteries, and provide service power for lights, hot water, cooking, and other housekeeping functions.
Escape trunk.
Located just aft of the escape trunk is an area known as maneuvering, and at its center is the propulsion cubicle. The cubicle was the watch station of the main power electricians. It was here that electricity from the main generators or the battery was applied to the main motors.
Apparently these diesel engines are aluminum, and they had a history of breakdowns, which is one of the reasons they decided to retire the boat. Diagram or picture of the engine.
On your left are the two main propulsion motors. Albacore was originally built with one motor, one shaft, and one propeller. As part of the Phase 4 conversion package, this compartment was cut open and extended in length to accommodate a second main motor, which was placed aft of the original motor. Each motor can produce 7,500 horsepower. The original propeller shaft connected to the forward motor was replaced by a smaller diameter shaft that fit inside the second, hollow shaft attached to the after motor. The motors were wired such that they always turned in opposite directions.
Notice that there are no torpedo tubes either fore or aft in this vessel. So there's a rudder at the end of the sail up there. Apparently when she would make strong turns, she would do a snap roll. So they added that rudder in order to stop the snap roll of the vessel. So there's the counter-rotating shafts. You can see the propellers have reverse pitches on them. I'm not sure exactly what this vessel is. It looks like some type of an experimental vessel. They call it the Ghost vessel. Looks like a catamaran. It's got counter-rotating shafts as well. Pretty futuristic looking. Looks like it'd be fun to ride. It's a small visitor center museum. Those are all the men that were lost on the Thresher. (1943). That's a World War II. Lost the Kaplan. 374 officers, 31 men, 52 submarines. This is the Albacore that went down. Can't say I've been disappointed by any of the vessels I've seen on this trip. So now it's to Brook State Park, which is about an hour plus away. Downtown Portsmouth. There's a vibrant downtown area. And Cumulus is starting to build. Not a good sign. I don't know if I'm going to be able to beat it or not. I may have made enough northerly travel to get around this building storm. Now to my left, and it's south of me. I'm headed northwest, so I'm hoping I'll circle around behind it. Heading south now. That could put me right back into the mix of this storm. In fact, it looks like it's rained here recently. The cumulus building over there. Temperature keeps going down too. Now it is. Welcome to Bear Brook State Park. Something like that's usually on the main road. I checked with the young man at the guard desk. He said it's a 3-mile ride back to the campground. Site 71. Some rumbles of thunder in the distance. I'm going to set up my camp and then ride into town. It's about 15 minutes away and get some food. Alright, after a quick camp setup, back on the road. Trying to find myself a light dinner and something for breakfast. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. My goal is to go into Charlestown, visit the USS Constitution. I think there's a destroyer there as well. And then the real purpose for tomorrow, because I've been to that before, although it's probably 25 years ago, so I'm interested in seeing that. But the real thing I want to see tomorrow, which I haven't seen before, is the cruiser that is located south of Boston, and then my campground is south of Boston. So it's going to be a long day. Alright, I'm getting rained on, so time to put all my electronics away and hunker down.